Welcome back. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday paused plans for a judicial overhaul until next month. This amid fears that Israel's worst national crisis in years could fracture his coalition or escalate into violence. Opposition parties said they would work to reach an agreement if the government was sincere. Protesters have flooded Israeli streets for weeks to express their opposition to the proposed plan. It calls for curbing the Supreme Court's powers to rule against the parliament and prime minister. It also gives lawmakers more power in appointing judges. Netanyahu says it will restore balance between the different branches of government while strengthening civil liberties, while critics accuse the prime minister of shielding himself from corruption charges. And now we're bringing in a leader within the American Jewish community for analysis on the judicial reform. Joining us live is Rabbi Yaakov Menken, the managing director of the Coalition for Jewish Values. Thanks for coming on the show today, Rabbi Menken.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Can you explain the motivation behind these reforms, and are they necessary or would they undermine democracy in the country?
Not only are they necessary, they are pro-democracy, and they are very long overdue. Beginning in the 1990s, a very activist chief judge, Aaron Barak, took it upon himself basically to rewrite that the state does not have a constitution. But he decided that everything can be judged and everything can be reviewed, and literally overrode Knesset legislation time and time again to better conform to what he and the fellow judges thought was correct for the country. Now, it's important to understand that in Israel, not like the United States, for example, judges are not appointed by the elected officials. At the current time, judges are actually appointed by a council that includes their own members. So it is a self-selecting oligarchy. And the other people on that board, there's a couple of Knesset members thrown in to be practically window dressing, because also you have members of the Bar Association who are beholden to the same judges. So it was a self-perpetuating system of leftist domination where, precisely after a more right-wing government had come in and was beginning to do things, Aaron Barak said, no, we're going to find a way to halt it. That's exactly what's going on now. You have a right-wing coalition saying, look, enough of this. We're going to have a democratically controlled Supreme Court so that, yes, judges will be selected, but selected by the Knesset will have much more say in who the next judge is, and they have to be voted on and confirmed the same way it works in the United States. That's pro-democracy, that's anti-oligarchy, but since it's anti-the left, they rewrite the narrative.
Rabbi Menken, thank you for breaking down the historical context surrounding these proposed reforms. Netanyahu has delayed the reforms, saying it allows time for dialogue, but he says either way, reform will be passed. What do you suspect will happen, considering the top union warned of more strikes if he moves ahead with the overhaul?
There's going to be more unrest because the left cannot stand to see their power threatened in this way. They talk about, oh, it means that the government will be unfettered and will take over. Well, guess what? Right now, literally, we have this situation, again, like I described. There are cases where the Knesset said, here's the solution we want, because it's a solution that satisfies religious and secular concerns. The Supreme Court said, no, we have judicial control over that. It was about a city street, literally. And they overrode the Knesset legislation and made the decision better conform to what the left wanted. So now what's going to happen is, obviously, Netanyahu's government depends upon the right-wing coalition that he has. And that center-right coalition is going to demand rational reform. In fact, most of the country agrees that reform is necessary, and the entire rewrite of the dialogue simply because they're anti-Netanyahu is just outrageous.
And Rabbi Menken, you talk about this tension between the left and the right. Rabbi Gilad Kariv is a member of the Knesset and part of the progressive Judaism movement. He says right-wing forces in the American Jewish community are driving the takeover as Israel's Supreme Court to gain better control over occupied Palestinian territories. In your view, is this accurate? Why or why not?
Well, if you wanted to talk about the United States intervention, the reform movement is almost entirely a U.S. thing, and it routinely interferes in Israel's internal affairs. This entire false dialogue, the rewriting of the Palestinian narrative. Remember that for 2,000 years, up until 1948, Palestine, which was a European colonialist name, meant Jews. Now they're trying to rewrite that entire history because the Israelis threw off the colonialist name and decided to call their country Israel, not Palestine. So now the Palestinians are Arabs. That's a complete false narrative. Occupied territory, what they call occupied territory, is the right to pray at the Western Wall, the right to live in the old city, the city of Hebron, from which Jews were ethnically cleansed until 1929, but is the site of the Cave of the Patriarchs. This idea that these were Arab cities that the Jews are occupying is based on classic tropes of Jews stealing property. This is completely ridiculous, a rewriting of history, and it's unacceptable. Karev is a reform rabbi from America.
I really do appreciate you breaking down this very complex topic for us. Rabbi Yaakov Menken, the Managing Director of the Coalition for Jewish Values, always great to speak with you.
Thanks so much.